In anything you do, if you really want to be successful, you have to have some faith. You have to have some faith, and a lot of that is with not even just believing in yourself, not having all the answers sometimes, but being willing to dive into something because you know you see some value there.
Welcome back. Today we have Vicken Baklayan. He is a real estate guru. So, business, real estate. He immigrated and has a really amazing story from when he was like 5 years old, and he's been across multiple different countries. Here's his backstory. I'm going to give you a little bit here. So, he's the founder of Roro Inc. So, he specializes in flipping and remodeling luxury bank owned homes into high end rentals across Hawaii, California, and Florida. Immigrated to Canada from Lebanon when he was 5, as I mentioned. He's not just a guy that owns one or two properties, he owns an empire of real estate. So, here, get this. He found Jesus Christ at 18 years ago, and he's applied the biblical principles of Christianity into his business, and he's been super successful. Vicken, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited. Thank you for having me, Mark. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of give back. I've had a quite a journey in my life, you know, and it started again. Started coming from Lebanon. My father owned a little store in Lebanon that was a little shop, and back then the Muslims burned it down. It was in the late 70s, so there was no insurance, so he had to pack up his bag, and immigration was a little easy. But we immigrated actually to Maryland. My uncle was an OBGYN doctor and came here, and I remember just, you know, getting to the airport and seeing an escalator for the first time and saying, wow, this is like the Jetsons. So I was very excited, and I was 5 years old, and my dad came with like 2 grand in his pocket, 3 mouths to feed, and started, you know, his American dream right out of the gate after losing absolutely everything in a predominantly Muslim country of Lebanon. So yeah, happy to be here for sure.
Wow, that is, that 5 years old coming over, and your dad. I mean, the $2,000 in the account. What did he do? So, for context, my wife's parents. So, my wife came from Poland when she was about 6 years old, and Joanna's parents, her father ran a very successful, even though it was communism there, he ran a very successful, as much as you could do business, he had an automotive company, and he had to pick up and leave everything. And they went to Austria for a year, and he delivered newspapers, and then he was sponsored and came over to Canada. But Joanna, like I recall, like she would share with me what that would look like when she came over. And so maybe you could share a little bit about your dad's background before actually coming over, and then the early stage of, okay, now you're in a brand new country. You saw the escalator for the first time. You're like, well, we're in the Jetsons. Take us from that point, and maybe a little backstory on your
Sure,
parents.
sure. I'll start with, you know, my dad. He became like he was into like tailoring, alterations. So he got his job, and back then I think minimum wage was like $1.35 an hour in the U.S. So he started doing that, started making a little bit of money here and there. But he was always one of those entrepreneurial type. He couldn't work for someone too long, so he started basically, you know, buying little auctions. There's a lot of bankruptcies back then. It was like the Jimmy Carter days. A lot of places were going out of business. It was high inflation, similar to what was happening with the Biden era. You know, a lot of things were just businesses weren't making it. You know, there's a lot of stagflation where a lot of businesses had high expenses, not enough revenue. And I remember, you know, we were probably like 7, 8 years old. He walked in, there was this big auction. It was like a mini Macy's, you know, and he ended up buying the whole place for like $30,000. And he had borrowed money from my grandmother, and everybody he potted all that money together. And this place was full of TVs and boots and shoes. I mean, it was huge, probably like a 50,000 square foot space. And by the end of the day, he had sold off 3 sections of it and recovered his 30,000 to other people that wanted those other items. And then we had like 3 days to get 5 truckloads worth of merchandise out of there. And that was just kind of the start, just learning retail, There was no Amazon and Walmart. There was no monopoly. So it was, you could buy things, sell things, and make a ton of money in the U.S. It was truly the land of opportunity back then. And we started going to flea markets. So it was just he was one of those guys that he knew that he had to do more than just working paycheck to paycheck. So we didn't stay poor long. I mean, it was within 2-3 years we had nice little house, and he was already realizing that, hey, in this country, if you work hard, you buy things at right prices, resell them, you'll make money. And the trade was there, retail was there, and China hadn't ruined everything yet for anybody. So we'll get into that a little later. But I mean, business was great. I mean, by the time I was 14, uh, my mom said, this neighborhood's rough. Like, I don't want to work here. He had bought a building. And this is funny how he bought this building. I remember I was 14 years old. He walked into this place where an old Jewish guy had passed away. The wife, Irene, was there. And I was there with him. It was summertime. And this place was full of shoes and everything. And the lady said, how much will you give me for the building and the inventory? And he said, I'll give you 50 grand. She wanted like 150. He said, I'll give you 50 grand. So she said, oh, that's too low. But my dad was a good negotiator, so he always taught me, start really low. You can always come up. So, she took it. So she took her bags out of there and her little coat, left, and he threw me the keys. And this was in Baltimore where all those riots were about 10 years ago, shootings and fires, and worst neighborhood in Maryland, worst neighborhood. And she said, here, here's the keys. You're going to run this for the summer. So that was my first school of hard knocks. 14 years old. There's like drug dealers on the corner. There's people getting shot, late night. Luckily, we were only open till about 6 p.m., but that corner was always getting, all kinds of problems. We were at a bus stop corner. And I didn't even know what I was doing. So, customers start walking in, and it was a lot of African American people in the community, and they were asking for church shoes. So I'd start opening the boxes and finding what they wanted. And by 2-3 months, I made them like 50 grand back. My summer was over. By the time I was 16, my mom and dad, we had 2-3 stores now. They asked me to, like, just drop out of school and run one of the stores. I said, you know what? If that's what you guys want. You listen to mom and dad, and kind of jumped in and, ran one of his stores. So that's kind of how it all kind of established. But my dad was one of those unique guys that he'd buy anything as long as the price was right. So he was buying disco shoes from the 70s for $1 a pair. And then we're selling them in the late 80s for $20 a pair. We weren't selling many, but there was still people buying them. So he figured he's making, 2,000% markup. So he was one of those guys. Like, he liked to buy a lot of things really cheap. It had a lot of room for margin, and he was good at what he did. And I learned from him to, you always make the money on the buy. Don't ever overpay. Don't be anxious, and start low. You can always come up. So that was one of these good life lessons I learned.
So what an incredible story, what a credible start, and what a credible mentor and coach that you had in your father and doing all these. With him coming to a new country with $2,000 in his pocket, you had said, it wasn't too long, like 2 to 3 years before he was doing really well again. It's interesting. What do you think the most important thing is for somebody to start with nothing and then make something of themselves? Because I think most people out there think that it takes a generation or a lifetime to make something of yourself, but your dad seemed to do it pretty quick, and you've done extremely well for yourself. What do you think the most important things are to be able to go from nothing and to actually be able to make something of yourself?
Yeah, honestly, it goes back to basic 101. It's always hard work, putting into time, putting into effort, putting into time. What I tell a lot of people is also, you have to come with the mentality, when you're super educated, you get something called analysis paralysis. So you kind of freeze up, you look at too much data, you find reasons why not to do things. My dad was the opposite. The first building he was going to buy, a commercial building, my uncle, who was a doctor, said that building will cave in on your head. It's structurally a junkyard, right? And my dad, he wasn't listening to any of that. He knew what he wanted. He'd walk into the place, he'd look at it, he'd made his decision. If he bought it right, and it's a lot of risk. A lot of people don't want to take those risks. They want obviously, it was a different time. Real estate was a lot cheaper back then. It was a lot less competitive than it is now. But I think the bottom line is in anything you do, if you really want to be successful, you have to have some faith. You have to have some faith, and a lot of that is with not even just believing in yourself, not having all the answers sometimes, but being willing to dive into something because you see some value there. The price looks good, the building looks good. I can rent this or I can sell something out of there. Go with your gut feeling and don't go with the things that they've brainwashed you and indoctrinated you in school with, because those professors, I can tell you, they're not making hundreds of millions of dollars.
No, you nailed it.
They'll teach you how to stay in a certain box for the rest of
Yeah,
your life because you'll always be thinking in that same exact box until the day you die because they'll brainwash you to the point where you can't even come out of that box if you tried.
yeah,
I call it the prison. So that's why I don't like to overeducate myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm a self-educator. I read 2-3 hours a day. Watch business. I've been watching CNBC for years. I mean, I could tell you anything about anything, financial statements. I mean, I know how to do a million things, but I don't overcrowd my mind with rules and regulations and the things that are going to slow you down. I like to put into my mind good self education and I use the Lord's discernment to kind of go through all that minutia and find out what the real deal is at the end of the day. What's the bottom line in this situation? So I think a lot of people miss that. They kind of think that everything has to be stepped out, planned out, and they're not willing. And honestly, I'll tell you, a lot of people are not really willing to put in that I'll do something that someone else is not willing to do.
yeah,
You know, you
100%.
know, I,
Yeah,
I will work longer. I mean, when I continue to tell my story, you're going to find out that I'd work 18-hour days for 5 years straight, away from the wife, no anniversaries, no, New Year's Eves. I was on my knees doing inventory and opening all these stores. We'll get into that interesting part of the story next. But when I kind of got away from the family business and started on my own. So I'll get into that a little more with you.
for sure. There's so much there that you just shared. And it's interesting that what I found with more time after scaling to multi-million dollar companies in real estate, what I found was that when you have these, so you come out of university, I took a 2-year college program, which wasn't even, it was like mechanical engineer, which is, I'm not even doing anything close to it, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have a degree or anything, but I found
That's the
that,
place to party. I know what all my friends
well,
did. They were the place to
it was,
experiment and have fun.
it was just something I was doing kind of on the side as I was playing hockey.
Right.
But the point I'm making is you come out of business school and you know how to do these big, massive, our business plan. You're about to start a business and you have this big business plan. And the problem with that, it's like it's so thick that you do it
Yeah,
once and you never refer to it ever again. It gets collects dust. But what I found with time was that the best business plans were on 1 or 2 pages max.
that's true. That's true.
Simple, to the
Yeah.
point, and massive execution, because like the reality is when you start a business is like 80% lead gen. Like bottom line is you got to get people in the door and you need massive action to get out there. And so but
I
I
think
want
you
to,
nailed it. You nailed it. I mean,
yeah,
it's faith in action,
yeah,
less reviewing, less supervisory, less
yeah,
administrative work,
massive
less
action.
sitting behind, figuring out what's the action plan, how fast can we execute, what are we going to do different than other people to distinguish ourselves and have an edge against all our competitors or whoever we're competing against, basically. And I think a lot of people don't understand that it's not made for everyone.
100.
Everyone doesn't have, I had some employees along the way and I said, listen, work like this. We go public, you guys will get free stock. They said, you know what, we can't work like this.
Yeah,
Some of them said, it's not our cup of tea. We can't work 18-hour days and we just
yeah,
can't put it. And listen, they're great. They still work for me and they're limited in what they make, but they made a choice. And life is just a bunch of choices. There's sacrifices and then there's payoffs for those sacrifices and there's timing and blessing involved and luck with that. So it's not a science to it, but if you do your part right, I think it comes through. And another thing I find is you got to love what you do. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't enjoy what you do, if you're not having some fun doing it, or at least some fun seeing the results, helps you, establish your ego a little bit. Getting You're doing pretty well. You're opening one store, another store, and the money's just coming in. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be good at it. If you're one of these guys that's complaining and every problem is a bigger problem, and your mouth is a magnet for issues, you're not going to make it. It's an attitude. It's just an attitude.
100%. Vic, and I want to summarize. You dropped so many gold nuggets there that you were on a roll there, but I want to summarize uh, some of the big nuggets that I took away from that, just for the listeners, because there's a lot there that I just want to make sure that they capture it. First is like hard work. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. But the second thing is, with hard work comes massive action without getting analysis paralysis. So is that without overthinking, getting enough information to be able to make a quick decision and move, start moving. And then closing your mind to people around you and not being impacted or swayed or influenced by what other people are telling you. When you really believe in something, you need faith, enough faith to say, you know what, I see it. I'm going to go after it. Even though there's no guarantees here, I'm going to move forward, even though I have people all around me that are telling me, nah, you know what, I don't think it's a good thing. The building's going to collapse. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
right. And
And,
then,
you nailed it. The reason I say you nailed it is because everyone around me was much, much smarter than me, educational wise. And believe me, if I had listened to them, the lawyers, the
yeah,
you know the banker that didn't want to give the loan because something popped up, or the excuses, I would just push through.
yeah,
I would listen to what they say, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes you do have to listen to them. There is times that they make you aware of something
yeah,
and they save you from a calamity. But let me tell you, most of the intellectuals, 99% of the time, they take a good deal away from you because they tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do this and do that. And obviously, with inflation and real estate, you don't really have to be a genius. The value of the dollar is devalued 99% over the last 30 years, probably. A dollar minimum wage is up to $20 in the US almost, what they're really paying, not what the actual minimum wage is, but what they have to pay in California and Florida now, close to $15 an hour. So, you just have to make the bets, put the stakes in the ground, and then manage them and be responsible for them. Treat them like your children. Take inventory of them, understand where the numbers are, check your own numbers, follow your own numbers. Don't If you get everyone else doing everything for you, believe me, you're not going to last long. Because unless you find a guy like I found who's really watches my numbers better than I would, you're not going to make it. You're not
yeah.
going to, because people just, they don't have a tendency to care. It's not their stuff. And they're
Mm,
not going to fight tooth and nail for your stuff and save you where they can. And that little plumbing call that's supposed to be $300 will be $3,000. And there's your profit. Your profit's gone, you know?
yeah, 100%. So let's keep going here with the story, because there's a lot here we want to dig into. So you've been brought up now, and you're taking over a store, right? Your dad comes to you one day and says, "Hey, listen, can you take a store?" You're like, "Okay, I'm going to do it." So take
Yeah.
us from
Yeah.
that point to like scaling
What
$100 million
happened? Yeah. Yeah.
portfolio. What happened in between
Well,
there?
well, you get a little pride. We started making a lot of money. I started, like, I remember I was a guy that would always, the first year that I sat down in the hood, I laid my feet up. I watched soap operas. I said, "What am I doing here? I'm selling disco shoes, for $20." Then I said, "Man, Dad, we're in the hood. I need to get like some brand name sneakers in here. What this neighborhood wants. So I started picking up the phone and I started calling every retailer. Hey, do you have any leftovers? Hey, because back then it was like a mafia. You couldn't get a Nike account if your life depended on it. Everyone had those connections, and the old. I love Jewish people, but they had the network. They were holding all the Nikes, and all the Fila account was a big one to have. Like, yeah, I called this place, Rudo Sports. These guys were the big players in town. He said, "Oh, yeah, we got a lot of leftovers." So we went over and met Harold, and he said, "Yeah." And I took my dad over there. We just started going buying his leftovers. They're making so much money on the top end stuff they're dumping their leftovers with 50% below wholesale. We started buying his leftovers, and I started bringing, and now we'll start making some decent money. My dad, I'm like, Dad, now we're making some money for you, And then one thing leads to another. I tell people you got to work to learn and learn to work. So once I saw that, hey, that worked. We met him. We're starting to sell a lot of product. Our revenues are going up. We're making a lot of profit. I picked up the phone, and one day I called up Foot Locker outlet, and all of a sudden the guy says, I said, "You got any leftover?" He said, I'm the Foot Locker outlet. They send me every leftover from every store. I said, "Serious? Yeah." I said, we're about an hour away from you. But you come on over. I'll sell you as many shoes as you want. I get run and call my dad. I'm like seventh. Dad, I found a place. It's an out. Oh, that's too far. We're not going to take the van and go all the way out there. I said, Dad, no, you don't understand. We need to change this business into a business where people buy what they want and we give them value. Say, oh no, it's too. I said, no, listen, let's go. We end up going over there.
There's that
The
grittiness
guy
coming
says,
out, right? That grittiness
yeah.
came out there. We got to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we get out there. I get him out there with an hour drive in his old, beat up van, that we take to the flea market all the time. And we get out there, and the guy says, pick out whatever you want, and $15 across the board. I said, what? We can sell these shoes for $60, $70 all day long. So we started. Before you know, we're going out there 2, 3 times a week, 2, 3 times a week, loading up the van, bringing it back. And it was just like, my upbringing with dad was, would stop at a KFC and get some chicken. There was no sports. There was no hockey for us. Hockey was like, hey, you guys did a good job. You loaded like 500, 600 pairs of shoes in the van. Here's 2 pieces of fried chicken for you. And it's great. We loved eating the fried chicken after a long day to get it back to the store in the morning, unload it, sell it all in a week. And before you know it, it got to the point they had so much excess there, they started selling them to us for $10 a pair. So out of that, a new idea was born. My brother came to me and said, we should open a store just called 29.99 Shoe Warehouse. Simple idea, one price, just throw the shoes on the table. And we did. Within a year, we started doing that, and it went gangbusters. I mean, people were coming in buying 8, 10 pair at a time. And I'm like, man, you got one set of feet. What do you need 10 pairs of size 12 for? Hey, this is a great deal. And we're doubling our money, tripling our money. So it's just one thing leads to another. I think that one connection gave us that momentum. And I think people don't understand. It's like the Bible says, knock and the door shall open, ask and you shall receive. And a lot of people, they don't want to go and put that effort. I know it's called cold calling nowadays. It works. You just can't take no for an answer and grind it out.
What a great story. You saw an opportunity and you were gritty enough and persistent, and then you kept going. So then what happened at that point?
What happened
Yeah.
after that is what we got a little bit greedy now. Now we're these young immigrant kids, almost 18. I have a brother that was in the business too. He's a little older than me. So we're making so much money. Dad's making all the money. You know how it is. The
Yeah.
dad
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
the money. We get pimped. We get to,
You get
you
the
get to eat
KFC.
it. You
You
get to
get the
eat at the
chicken.
house, and it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. So and then we actually went back to Syria, and I had met my wife there, right? And then my wife's sister was there, and then when my brother came back to visit, he met the sister, and they hit it off. So we had a double wedding. My dad loved to save money, so we had 2 people getting married on one one occasion, a double wedding. So now we're serious. We're 21.
Wow.
We started thinking, you know what? In America, you don't work hard to make money. You play stocks. So we got into this 98 bubble. So we started buying and we didn't know anything about investing. So we basically we put all our eggs in one basket. It was called Lucent. I call it Lucifer. It ended up going bankrupt eventually, but man, we took a bath. Like the
Yeah.
family lost, I think in total we ended up like my brother was trading. He made 2 million a year, but he ended up losing that and another two. I ended up losing the 500,000, 600,000 I had made and 1,300,000. So it's like all of a sudden, whoa, there's a reality in America too, where if you work hard, it's great. You might get a lot of money the long, hard way, but you can also lose it really fast. There's another avenue to it where hanging on to the money is like riding a horse. You got to know how to stay on the horse. Once it throws you off, you're starting from scratch again. So I think the long story short, what ended up happening was that I think I was about 28. Me and my brother had just opened up our own stores, and after we had this stock market debacle thing, he kind of said, I'm going to move on to Jersey, and I said I'm going to start opening stores in other states, and it took me back a little bit. So this is one of the important things when you fail and you get knocked down, you get hit hard, take a little time to reflect. It's okay to be a little sad about it. Over medicate yourself. I know everyone drinks and does something.
Yeah.
So it's okay. But then I was the type of guy that said, this isn't me. I need to get off. I have a good concept. I can go to every hood in America, find a nice old building, buy the building, fix it up, and then open more of these stores and make a killing still. So went back to basics. But just like I said, don't chase the fast dollar, because we have a saying, it's an Armenian saying, if you want to get rich fast, you invite being poor quicker.
Mm.
Yeah, because that's what happens. I think everyone nowadays, the biggest problem you find now, and I think you find this problem now because honestly, the opportunities are not there like they used to be 30 years ago. Things have gotten more competitive. You got so many of these big corporations. Capitalism has gone, ballistic now. I mean, there's so many monopolies,
Yeah.
and I understand it's just ease, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of opportunities. There's always going to be opportunities. You just have to find those new angles. But what I find is most people nowadays, they're trying to get rich fast. They want the crypto. They want that home run deal that's going to get them rich with one, and it just doesn't work that way. It's a process. It's always the turtle that's going to win the race. The rabbit's going to get run over every time. You know.
Mm.
So that's one of the
Yeah.
things we kind of learned. So what happened for me, I actually had to separate my business from my brother and my father because they were more risk takers and they liked to gamble in the stock market. And that was their prerogative. And being the younger son, I'd listen to them. And so I said, you know what? You guys do your thing. I'm kind of going to do my thing. I said, let me go back to basics and, started with one store and then two stores. The second year I did four stores. I'd come into the neighborhood, find an old crummy building no one wanted in the hood. And if they wanted 500,000, I'd offer half, 250. And then the guy said, oh, could you do 300? I said, all right, let's do it. And then, I started buying those buildings and I would just bring in local help. We weren't pulling permits and regular, just knock out the walls, take care of what you need to fast, before anyone shows up, get the doors
Yeah.
open,
Yeah.
faith in action. So we literally close on the building. Within 30 days, there's a grand opening. The inspector shows up. Hey, did you guys do a lot of work? I said, what? Oh, look, we bought the building 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about, work? Oh, okay, here's your occupancy. And that was it. So we cut out a lot of the red tape. That's what we're hoping Trump's going to do. Cut out a lot of the red tape so people can actually work, and open businesses. And it's amazing to me how, if you allow that red tape and to follow the book smart way and to follow all those, local rules, that you just won't make any traction. You won't be able to. Oh, every store will take 6 months to open, 1 year to open. Mine were taking an average of 3 to 4 weeks. Like the inventory's coming in. Here's some folding tables. Here's a couple of signs up on the. I mean, it was just fast. Just put it together fast, and people were rushing in there buying those shoes. And we incorporated clothing and everything else, and it was a great business. So I think from 2001 to 2006, before I met Scott, I had 24 stores I opened by myself, just with my wife being the back data entry person. She was the one. Back then, it wasn't like now. Like you dialed into the service. It was like, you had the DSL lines. It was a real pain with the software and everything. And that's why we didn't have a life for 4 or 5 years. We were just basically just making opening those stores, getting into revenue. She was handling the bills. I'm on the road, opening more stores, and we were in like 7 or 8 states. And then when Scott joined, he said, "Let me put some systems in place. let's help you grow this thing so you can sell it. Because I wanted to sell it. It was getting to be too much. And then when he joined, he said, let's put some systems in place. And he ended up joining, and we opened another 30 stores in like another 2 years. So we were up to like 55 stores. Now, granted, we owned all these buildings, and I'm a guy that doesn't like debt. So I was paying off my notes on 5-year amortizations. I'm not the guy that was leveraging, paying 30-year amortizations. And but the thing is, that put a lot of pressure on us. So when the crisis hit in '08, '09, we started to feel it, because now we had 54 5 stores, and we're paying off these notes, even though these buildings were no more than five, six, $700,000 each. We're paying off 5-year amortized notes, and then we don't have enough money for all the inventory. So now the pressure started coming in, and this is when I had my coming to Jesus moment. So that was the best part. I would say that the best part of my life was meeting Jesus Christ, because that changed the game for me. That was the thing where back then I think I had like 25. I probably had like 35 million in properties, commercial properties. We were mostly commercial properties back then. And I probably had like 25 million in debt. So I was leveraged, and it was bad timing. But again, just everything happened to the point where you start losing your way again. It almost reminded me of the time when I lost my money in the stock market, overextended. I lost the balance in life, because it's really being successful is about body, mind, spirit. And you really have to have those things all in order, a balance. And, marriage comes after that, obviously your kids come after that. But I started losing my way because it was too much. 300 employees. I'm growing.
Yeah.
So you now all of a sudden, you lose your way a little bit. And I had my it all came to kind of a thing. I think it was like October 12th, 2008. I don't know what came over me. I thought I was the guy that like controlled everything. I had all the answers. And I just got on my knees crying like a baby one day and just like, Jesus, now I realize that man doesn't control a thing, that you are in charge. And I've been such a fool. I've been such a shame to the way I've lived my life, the way I've taken care of my marriage, the way I raise my kids, and I have lost complete focus. And it goes back to the saying, what is profit a man if he gain it the whole world, but he loseth the soul? And I just cried it out, got up, and granted, I had never read a book since of Mice and Men since I dropped out of school at 16. My wife came back. She was in Jersey visiting her sisters. And I told her, I gave my life to Jesus. I said, what, you? Like, she knew I was just this hardcore businessman, just
Yeah.
wanted to be the next Sam Walton. And she said, you of all people? I said, yeah. And she said, you gotta, well, you gotta read the Bible. I said, read the Bible. I said, okay. So she threw me this little green Bible, and I picked this up and I started reading this. I'm like, wow, no one taught me any of this. Everyone taught me money's power. We're
Yeah.
immigrants, prestige. If you have money, people will be your friend. All the stuff that secular world will teach you. And I started reading this, and it's like the Holy Spirit was filling into me. And during some of the darkest period of my life, it just filled me up with joy. And I said, the first thing I did, I said, I used to smoke cigarettes back then. I said, no more cigarettes, no more drinking alcohol. I got a personal trainer, started taking care of myself, took the wife with me. We're working out every day now, taking the kids to Orlando every weekend, having fun. And in the midst, I'm not. There's no financial clarity. I may even lose everything. I was a few million behind on back taxes, and things were just behind because I kept not paying my estimates, using those funds to buy more properties, because it seems like you could have never lost until that crisis hit. But then, like I said, after that moment, and the funny thing is, 2 years before this incident where I got on my legs and on my knees and started praying and asking for God's salvation, I was in Chicago, and I was looking at this building. It was $1 million building. And I was looking at it, and across the street was a store called Changes, of all things. And I went over there, and I was a big guy now. I can wear $100 shirts, and I was going to go to Vegas, and I had my guys coming in for a powwow out there to give a big, a group meeting for assistant managers and everything. So I went into the store. I walk in, and the guy says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm looking at buying that building." He said, "That's $1 million building. You can't be more than 35, 36 years old. I'm 65 years old. I've had this little shoe store and clothing store for 30 years. How can you buy that building?" I said, "Well, God is good." He said, "You know God?" I said, "Yeah." And when I got married, I used to go to Immaculate Conception with my wife, the little Catholic, peace be with you, peace be with you. And she said, "Oh," I said, "No, let me tell you, son, you need to know Jesus." And he started this Jesus stuff. And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't want to, this is the last thing I need to hear. I've been working hard my whole life. This is my time to shine. I got a guy like Scott running things. I got all the free time in the world, all the success. And of course, pride is all inside of me at this point. Like, I'm going to be the next Sam Walton. I'm going to do this. And it's all nonsense. But at the end of the day, the guy said, "Let me tell you, you need to know Jesus." And I said, "Okay, let me be street smart. What do I have to do?" "Oh, you have to say this prayer that you confess that Jesus is your Lord." And I just said it. I didn't mean it. I didn't feel it. I didn't even think anything of it. And then he threw that little green Bible in my briefcase. So this is why I bring you back to 2008 when I was on my knees. I'm like, "What? How did you get this Bible?" My wife said when we left Maryland, it was sitting in the drawer, and something made me take that same Bible and bring that down to Florida. The same one that the guy prayed on me in, which I was not ready at that time. I actually got worse after that. That same Bible was the same one that I ended up reading that ended up changing my life. And let me tell you, the difference between following Christ, and I see why it's called discipline and disciple. Those words are intertwined to me. Following Christ and just being a believer in Christ. The difference is like drinking sewage water and pure crystal clear water from the heavens. When you follow Christ, it's a different level. People don't understand. It's not being a believer. It's not going to church, knowing of Jesus, going to church even every Sunday. You're a believer maybe, and you're not applying the words. But what I made it, I'm a guy that's a literal guy. I like to go right to the bottom line. If this is what you say, this is what I need to do. So this is what I'm going to try. And I tell you, as I implemented every one of those promises, every one of those things it says in the Bible, one by one. Okay, stop drinking. Take care of your temple. It's your church. It's like a different world. Heaven begins when you start following the Bible.
Mm.
We have so many Christians now that are just defeated. Their heads are down. They have so many problems. They have health issues. They have mental issues. They have addiction issues. They've gained the whole world. Even some of them are even super wealthy, but wife's on pills, the husband's drinking, the kids are doing whatever. I mean, it's like the modern day Babylon. And I tell people now all the time, today's abundance is the prison that the devil loves to give to people.
Mm.
I don't want America to be great again. I want the number one thing in everyone's life to be Jesus again. Because once the number one thing in everyone's life is Jesus again, and they start following the teachings that the Lord has put, He's just giving you an instruction basically in how to live the best, cleanest, most satisfying, and purest life to your benefit. It's not even that He doesn't care, It's like, hey, you want to do it? No. Okay, go ahead, suffer. So
Well,
that's kind of the thing that I learned. Like it was amazing how God will seek out one of his wild children that was completely lost, was trying to conquer the
yeah.
world, and just spend time to pursue, have some guy in a store called Changes pray, give him a little Bible, and then 2 years later, that Bible, and then after that, I read the Joyce Meyer version and then the other version, and just blows your mind.
Vic, and it's so amazing to hear. Well, thanks for sharing that. By the way, it's a beautiful story, and it's you you never know the seeds that you plant. So that guy that planted early in you, it's
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
it's like, I'm not, I'm not really sure if that really caught, but
Yeah.
it's like, and I think that's where for all of us, it's like, sharing the word and encouragement. It's just, you'd never know when that's going to actually be grabbed onto. And so he planted a seed and it came back to you in a beautiful way. There's a lot there. I'm curious, when you made that decision, you're there, you had all this financial, you're going through like a market 2008 2000, that was tough, very very tough market. You meet Jesus, and and then you started, following the Bible, right? You started
Yeah.
following,
Yeah.
you did all these things. How did your life change after that? Like, from the years following that, and how'd you get through? Did you get through the financial? Because I think that's where,
Oh
some
yeah. Yeah.
listeners, it's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
what
that's the
happened
thing. That's the
after
beauty of
that?
this. I love that question. Actually, you nailed it. You know, I used to run 120 hours a week to keep it all glued together in my own strength, and you wouldn't believe it. The first year, actually, within the first 2 months, I was on a plane going to Israel, just to see where's this guy at? Like, where did
Yeah.
he
Oh,
walk?
yeah.
I was fascinated. After I read that book, I said, I am fascinated. I love this advice. I've never heard anything like this. Parents aren't teaching this to their kids. Parents are giving into the secular world now. You know, they're letting everyone just do what they want, how they want. And unfortunately, there's no discipline, there's no disciples left. And the world's falling apart. But I ran there, did that, did a couple of, came back. And then I realized, like, the more I started implementing the things, the less I was working, the less I felt the need to go out and conquer the world. And the more I was getting blessed somehow. It was counterproductive. It didn't make sense to me. You know, how is it that I used to work 120 hours a week, could barely keep up with the bills? And there was times like, we had 70,000 a year in non-sufficient fund fees. We'd, take it from this account, shift it to this account. We'd pay it. The bankers knew we were good for it. But, and now all of a sudden, just like I'm sitting there, I'm studying the Bible one whole year straight, fasting one day a week, not eating any food for one full day. And then just things started clicking back like, okay, God said, you don't need all these stores. You don't need 300 employees. Start start taking these assets, start selling them off slowly, start downsizing your inventory. Don't buy new inventory. You're in a crisis. Sell your old inventory, shift, downsize. So I just followed the Holy Spirit's discernment. He just said, this isn't your life anymore. Now that you got me riding this, you're not the hitchhiker anymore. I'm driving the car. Let's have you start downsizing this. And I started doing it slowly. And you wouldn't believe, like, I mean, I was a few $1 million behind. The banks didn't want to loan us anything because I only had like 10, 12 million in equity still, but they were struggling at that point. So they're not lending anyone any money. But like within 2 years, I think what happened was after 2 years, I was being able to pay the bills, downsizing, following Christ. It was all kind of still working out. And within 2 years, I called one of the bankers up because we were making a final payment on one of our 5-year mortgages, and Scott had given me the sheet. He's organized it. Called him. You got to pay for flood insurance. It's not worth it. It's like 7 grand. We're going to make the last payment. You don't want to waste that money. So I said, let me call the banker up. I call that banker up, Greg Bexton from Hawthorne Bank. Say, Greg, you probably don't remember me. 5 years ago, I got this loan from you. And, he said, oh, no, I remember you vividly. He said, you're the guy that I tried to argue with. Take the 15-year mortgage, pay in the future. No, no, I don't want to pay that much. You wanted a 5-year amortization. So he comes back to me, and we were going in our own effort to every bank and trying to get loans, and no one wanted to give loans. He said, matter of fact, the rates are down to like 3% now. Will you let us loan you money on all those properties all over again? So it just, when the Lord works, and then Scott's there, like, he's amazed. Like, in our own effort, we're trying to get these loans. This guy's asking us to give us a few million now off of a phone call. And it just, one one miracle after another like that. So as soon as and I remember the day I went to sign that notary for that refi on that shopping center, the notary said, Mr. Baklayan, you have to date it. October 12, 2011. It was exactly 3 years to the date that I had given my life to Christ. 3 years. God, three means a lot in the Bible. Jesus rose from the dead in 3 days, So it was exactly 3 years to the date where I finally got that first check. And then the IRS lien letters came in a week after, but I had the money already with the penalties and everything. Went in and paid the 2-3 million, not whatever I owed off. And it was, I mean, just even with my kids, like I know this is a business broadcast, but and Disney Typhoon Lagoon, we're up there because I'm a new dad now. All of a sudden, I know what life's really about. We're up there. There's this ride where you're swimming and there's some fish underneath and stingrays. And it started getting cloudy and just pouring rain. So they shut the ride down. Brandon was 5.5 years old. He runs up to me. Daddy, Daddy, can I pray to Jesus to stop the rain? I just turned and I said, yeah, do that. I mean, we're adults, so we're logical too. But he had childlike faith. So he
Yeah.
goes, we're under this cave and it's pouring. I'm looking, it's gray everywhere. I don't see this opening up. Within like 10 minutes, I don't know what happened. Everything opened up. It was completely sunny again.
Love it.
And then he went. He said it worked, Dad. He went with his mom. He did the ride once. He swam. It took 5 minutes. He said, "Can I do it again?" He did it again. He came back. Mark, you won't believe this. Within that 10 minutes, he did the ride twice. He came back. Clouds closed back in. Started raining so hard they announced that we're closing the park for the rest of the night. Day. I mean, it was like insane. This
Beautiful.
is this is my kid that needed faith, by the way. He's kind of like me. He's a little bit on the wild side. He's a spear fisherman. He goes in with swims with sharks, and he's got a website handle, Aquatic Assassin. Like he's all over. Like he does crazy stuff now. He's like me. He doesn't have any fear. Praise Jesus. In Jesus' name, I always send the angels around him all the time. But he came to me. He was 11 years old, and we're running in my neighborhood. I was running. I was taking care of myself. So I take him out. It was one of these cold mornings, January. It was like 42 degrees. He comes out and he always hears me preaching about Jesus and Jesus. And he says, Dad, if Jesus is so real, I'm going to take this twig and throw it on the floor and let it turn into a snake. I just went, wow. I looked at him and said, Son, the Bible says, do not test God.
Mm.
But the Holy Spirit told me, tell him that he has a better chance of seeing a snake on this cold weather. He has a better chance of hitting the lottery twice in the same day. But tell him, the Holy Spirit told me to tell him this. I'm so big and I love him so much that I wouldn't be surprised if he sees a snake today. And I told him, I said, before we even ran, I said, son, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the snake you asked for. The first
Mm.
time we ran around, Mark, right in front of us, right on the sidewalk, right in our path, big black thick snake. I literally got on my knees with my son. No fear, right in front of the snake. It's cold, it's barely moving. It wasn't dead, it was alive. I said, Father Jesus, man, you're a good God. You such a good God that you changed this knucklehead father of Brandon's just to build faith in him. I said, my gosh, this was his second miracle. His third miracle, one day I walk into the room, his stomach's killing him. I mean, it's just like, that. I'm like, man, his appendix must have blew. Like, this is dangerous stuff. Like, and it's a Saturday night. It's like 7 p.m. So I run in I'm like, let me get changed because he's a tough kid. He never complains. And he was like 13. I said, Brandon, pray with the blood of Jesus on yourself. Pray. He said, Dad, I said, pray. You know the power of God. You've seen it. So he prayed on himself. Jesus, with your blood, heal me. This. So then he starts, Dad, it hurts so bad. So I run in. I'm going to get changed. I'm going to take him to the emergency room. I open up the thing, and my father-in-law lives with me, and he drinks a few beers here and there. So there was a beer in there. Something said, take the beer. He was like 13 years old. Open it up, give it to your son. Went, took the beer. He said, Dad, I'm dying. He said, here, drink this beer. He took a sip of this beer, Mark, this craziest thing in the world. He took one sip. He puked everywhere. I ran, went and got my shoes on, got dressed, came back. He wasn't even in the bed. He's sitting on the throne. He's making noises. You know, he's having diarrhea too, I guess. And I said, "Come on, get ready." He said, "No, Dad, I'm good. I'm cured." You know, God is there, and I know this is a business, podcast, but I'll share whatever you guys want to share and edit. But I like to tell people that there's a bigger thing than
Yeah.
yourself. There's a bigger thing than your own kingdom. There's a bigger thing than your own desires. There's a bigger thing than your own deceptions. And your dreams can end up being your prison. And that doesn't mean that God doesn't want abundance for us. That doesn't mean God doesn't bless us. That doesn't mean God doesn't give. Many of the people in the Bible that were faithful to God were abundantly blessed with lands and, livestock and cattle. That's not to say that God is saying no. But, wealth isn't for everyone. Not everyone can handle it. It could lead them down the wrong road. And it was leading me down the wrong road before, thankfully, Jesus intercepted. So.
I think when it comes down to you had said like a business podcast, but I think that there's this misconception, perhaps for some people, maybe not, maybe I'm off on it. I know it's like in order to go hardcore in business, that following Jesus is not in alignment with that, or it's not. They can't be intertwined, and not even that. When it comes down to it, it's easy to be like, okay, I'm going full out for business, and I'm going to put you aside, Jesus. But actually, the best thing for your business, I believe, is if you keep the Lord in front of you at the above it, and actually that helps you make really wise decisions in the
Amen.
business.
Yeah.
And I think that when you lose sight of like it's something bigger, and especially the Lord with that, it's like that allows you to make better overall decisions. And at the end of the day, it's almost like you had said, it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like in regards to all these good things are starting to fall into place right now, right?
Oh, the alignment
Your
was
life really
unreal. It
changed,
was, I mean, literally,
right?
we had a hurricane in two of our commercial buildings. We didn't even fight with the insurance adjuster. He shows up and writes checks for $1.5 million on one and half a
Yeah,
million on the other. I mean, it was like, wow.
yeah,
We went back. It was like, it wasn't that much work. It was like $70,000 to fix it for us, but he wrote it up the way he wanted to write it up. We didn't even fight it. It's like checks came on and it's like, and that's what I tell people all the time. I think that's why the Bible verse says, "You seek thy kingdom first, so I give you all things
yeah,
abundantly."
yeah,
So
yeah,
what that means is, as long as you don't make your business your idol,
yeah,
your dream your idol, your children your idol, your wife your idol, anything your idol, and you seek God's kingdom first and you seek his ways first and doing it his way, all those other things are just added upon to
yeah,
you. Like he'll give you the good wife, he'll give you the good children with the good next generation. He'll give you all those other things, and the most important thing that I say that he gives us is peace, because ultimately, isn't that what mankind really needs? Isn't that what mankind is really seeking? Is it really going to matter what car they drove or how big of a house they lived in or how many I mean my kids, we've been to 60 countries and we traveled the world because and I had Scott in the office, my mother-in-law, father-in-law lived with me. Every summer we take off. They've been to Sweden, Israel. There's not a country I haven't been to. New Zealand.
mhm,
And we enjoyed life because we
yeah,
put God first. We put Jesus first in our life. And don't get me wrong, the world's seductive. It doesn't stop. It's gonna draw you. Oh,
yeah,
you could be making some money in the stock market again, Vic. Come on. And there's times you fall back into the little traps. But the good thing is you have the Word of God in you. You have the Holy Spirit. He keeps you on a short leash because you've studied the Word. And what I find is people now are perishing from a lack of knowledge. They don't understand what knowledge is. Not artificial intelligence that's going to save them. It's Jesus's intelligence that's going to save them. And they're perishing. and they're all perishing. And it's not demographic. It's not the rich or the poor. Everyone's failing. The rich are failing just as much as the poor, because what good is it if you have the whole world and someone's getting drunk and the other one's on pills and the kids are
Yeah.
lost and there's overdoses and there's all these bad stories you're hearing, this exuberance, you know? I mean, what's the point? You wish you never got rich if that's what was going to be the outcome
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
end, right?
Well,
So
especially, and you see that like with, with marriages and families and stuff, you get wealth and then you're living a different lifestyle and you lose that humility, that humbleness, pride starts to creep in. And so now just a couple things like when you, is there anything that you do because you had to, listening to the Holy Spirit and whatnot, um, is there anything you do with that? Is it like going to the word? It's like, Lord, show
I
me
tell you
that
what
here's what
I've
I'm
been
looking
doing.
for.
What
Yeah.
I've been doing recently, and I've been doing it this last 6, 7, 8 months, and actually a little longer than that, probably going on about a year now. There's some beautiful music, Bethel worship. We must
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah.
Meditate. Close
Yeah.
your eyes. I wake up now, usually 5 a.m. I meditate for an hour. I listen to an hour of music while I'm talking to God and hammering out, going back and forth. Listen, someone might say you're talking to yourself. That's fine. It's filling my spirit, right? All right. If you think I'm talking, that's fine. Then I go out and I run 4.5 miles. And this is when everyone else is still sleeping. And I come home at 6:30. I'll shower up. Then I go do Pilates with the wife for an hour. You know, that's my schedule. Then I'm done for the day because I work for the Lord.
All
Then I
right.
decide what we're going to eat healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
bottom line is the first step I would tell anybody, if you really want a close relationship with Jesus, you have to read his word.
Yeah.
And I would always start in the New Testament for everybody. And you want to pray before you even read his word and say, Lord, if you're real and reveal yourself to me, I want an intimate relationship with you. I don't want to just read words and they don't mean anything to me. So let the Holy Spirit pierce my heart. Let my soil be ready to receive what you're giving me, the wisdom you're giving me. That makes a world of difference when you come in humble like that. Because the Bible says, you know, if my people would humble themselves and seek my face, I'll heal their bones and heal their lands. And that's why you're going to see. Doesn't matter if it's Trump or a Canadian president. No one's going to have your best interest, but the Father who created you in the womb, who knows you, who knitted you, and he knows the beginning of your life, the middle of your life, the end of your life. No one's going to do anything for you other than yourself and discernment and following the word. And I would tell everybody that's the first step. Read the word, get into a good non-denomination. Don't go to a religious place. And I don't mock Christian, we're Orthodox Christian, but I'm a non-denomination guy.
Yeah.
I believe a church is your body. You can practice church just by reading the Bible and alone, but it's good to do it in community with other, believers that are actually followers of Christ, not just
Yeah.
believers. We probably have a billion believers. I bet you we don't have less than a million followers, maybe. Who knows? I want to be on that follower list always.
It's
So
beautiful. Yeah. For me in the past where I've had something that was like, it was a big decision, it would be like just going to the Bible and say, Lord, here's like, I'm looking for guidance and wisdom on this. And then boom, I just open it up and this like, this has happened for me in the past is like, boom, there's like a perfect verse that gives me like clarity. And it's like, when you see it and read it, like, boom, that's,
that's the
that
Lord
hits
talking
me.
to you. Yeah, he's only going to talk to you if you seek him. It's like he's not going to talk to you. He's always there for you. But would you want as a father? You have 3 sons. You want your kids to want you, to
Yeah.
need you, right? To come and say, "Hey, Dad,
Yeah.
I got a question about this."
Yeah.
Well, that's the same heart. It's the same relationship. I'm sure you'd give your life in an instant for any of your children. I know I would, right? But it's the same thing for him, and he did. He gave his life in an instant for us so that we can go seek him and pursue him and he just wants to make your life easier. But if you say, you know what, I don't want to hear that. I want to go over here, and
Yeah,
there's
right.
there's a nice big yacht
Well,
party, and this looks more exciting,
and that's
you
the
know.
point is that he's so like he'll say, yeah, you know what, go ahead, because he's not
Yeah,
he's not demanding, as in like you have to listen to me. It's like I'm here, I love you, but like, you know, go, like if that's something you want to do. He doesn't hold us because we got free will, right? And so but so that okay, so there's a couple things here I want to make sure, because this is, we can keep talking, this is beautiful, such a beautiful
and I'm going to get back into
story.
business, so you kind of hear that
No,
part
that
too, because
because
it's
it
good.
all ties together. Listen,
It is,
I
it
think
is.
that ultimately family and, you know, spiritual and, you know, your health. I mean, listen, you can only be the best at business when you got all these things going on the other side. I
You
think that's
nailed it.
ultimately
You
what you
nailed it.
want. So, but a couple of things. So first, in regards to the investing side, so because there's a few things I want to get into here before we wrap up and before we get into the rapid fire. What investing? You've been through a lot. What investing advice do you have for the listeners out there, the entrepreneurs that are listening? You've seen a lot. So in this market right now,
You know,
what advice would you have for them to help them get ahead?
honestly, right now you have an overinflated stock market, so most people probably don't have a lot of capital. Everyone's jumping into crypto. My son's made a boatload of money in it too, you know, and I laughed at him. I'm still going to stick to the principles of the Bible. I think businesses that you can develop and run and grow. Right now, to me, if I was starting from scratch with nothing and said, "Hey, let me get into something," the biggest opportunity in the US right now, before the robots come in 20 years from now, assisted living facilities. You know, you can have houses where you can watch elderly and get $5,000, $6,000 a month per old person that you're watching as you serve the Lord. As you serve, you can make money. And you know, people don't realize this. The biggest demographic are the baby boomers, and they have tons of money, and they have money, and their kids aren't going to take care of them, unfortunately. They're not going to be like you know, I take care of my mother-in-law, father-in-law for 27 years. I'd be surprised if my kids want to take care of me when I'm older, but who knows? You know, I've sown and I don't expect anything from them. But the point is, the baby boomers have made a lot of money. They're going to be cutting checks for $7, $8,000 a month for someone to watch their parents. So it's not a hard business. It's not labor intensive. You don't need $1 million to get into it. The assisted living facilities, I think, it is a big opportunity because you're solving a big problem, and you don't have to do it. You can do it in a residential home, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, and you could put two people in each room. You give them 3 square meals. You take good care of them. You don't have to be a medical professional. You can go get licensed by the state. I think it might take 3 to 6 months, and you can pop one open and start collecting the checks. And there's going to be so right now, my father-in-law, unfortunately, we were in California. We have a second home there. We ran back because he had, you know, congenitive heart failure. So we came back, and he's doing okay. He's back in his room now. He was in rehab 2 weeks ago. But I look at, you know, the situation, and this is what we're facing now. I'm 53. Everyone's going to get older. And the biggest opportunity is an opportunity that Amazon cannot kill. The robots can't take over yet, you know. So you have a good 20 year, 25-year window to really just kill it. Now, is it for everyone? No. But like I said earlier, when you do things other people aren't willing to do, that's when you make a lot of money, you
Got it.
know.
So business and assisted living, those would be the two right now.
Yeah, yeah. Business wise, retail is tough. You can't really
Yeah.
do retail. I mean, you know, everything else is, you know, a lot of people obviously they're doing stuff on social media. That's another crowded field. But if you're trying to make, you know, basic money, and I think assisted living, you could have 10 people in one house bringing $60,000 a month in, and your expenses would be 20,000 a month, and you could make, you know, 30, $40,000 a month off one house, which could be scaled, by the way. You know, you don't have to have a large commercial building and house 100 people. You can do it in regular residential homes in every state, you know.
So Vic, and going back to when you were paying off your loans in 5 years, Is that still after been? Yeah, I mean, you've been through a lot. Is the are the principles still pay your debt off fast, like 5 years, or when you go back, when you went back to that, would that have been a better move to take a 15-year note versus a 5-year note?
I think it would have been better to take a 15-year note, but I think at the end of the day, there's a certain dollar amount that most people get to where your lifestyle is not really going to change, you know? Once you get to a certain place and your characteristics, like I'm still the guy that's not valet parking at the 4 star I buy on Priceline and I don't know which one it is, you know, and then I'm carrying the 24 waters up there just because I don't want to pay $6 for a
Yeah,
water, you
yeah,
know.
got it.
Yeah, so your characteristics aren't going to change much. So, you know, I think it's better to get out of debt quicker because it does give you more options to be able to reinvest when there's more opportune times. I think most people think they always have to be fully invested or the name buying real estate means something. I don't need to buy any real estate ever unless someone is giving it away or I'm stealing it. Unless
Mm.
I'm getting 20% off, 30% off. Just to go back to what I really do now, the last 5, 6 years, all I've been doing is buying bank owned real estate 20 to 35% off of today's market value, fixing it up with my own crew. They'll go in there, sleep in there with air mattresses, 4 guys, and within a month, the house will be completely updated luxury. And within 2 weeks after that, it'll be fully rented. That's what I do now.
And
So
you
my
are
portfolio
they're
is
high,
basically
they're
about,
higher end rentals.
yeah, I focus on, you know what I decided when again that Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, Vic, I know you did business in the hood and you were lucky and blessed because you know these $400,000 buildings became $1 million buildings, and luckily you paid them off fast. So, but don't do business in these rough areas where people are going to come steal your copper and break your windows, and you don't want to be dealing with the lower demographics like Section 8. I don't want to deal with fighting, arguing to collect rent, that kind of stuff, But the thought God gave me, he said, there's always going to be winners and losers, even in the digital economy.
Mm. Yeah.
Serve the winners. And the winners are going to be wealthy because there's always going to be winners in this economy, even in the AI economy. There's always going to be winners. And you want to have the properties that the people that have the money want to come rent. So, fortunately for me, like I said, I wasn't some wizard. Like, I came across one website that again, my daughter, I think it was like 9 years ago. Yeah, probably no, 11 years ago. Dad, let's go walking. Ah, I really don't feel like it, but I said, all right, let's do it. So I started walking. I had a nosy neighbor. He's like, hey, I know you like to buy houses. You bought four in this neighborhood. There was only 100 houses in the neighborhood. I already bought four at discounts during the crisis. He said, I know you like to. There's an auction on this one. So I went and looked at it. It was an auction. I wasn't familiar with auctions back then, but just like anything else, you can learn anything easy. Just go to the next step. Don't stop just because something is challenging. I called. There was some guy out of India. I'm like, oh, this must be a scam. And they said they did the closings in India. It was a website called hubzoo.com. So I said, okay. I started looking into it. I asked Scott about it. I said, okay, let's try one. We bought one. Then we bought another. We were buying houses 30, 40% off of market value from this website. And these people are processing the paperwork and, they're selling all bank owned homes out of India. And then after Hubzu got too smart and they started selling them closer to real value, I said, forget about them. Found another website that was just as good. And I went to town. It was like I tell people all the time, when you find that vault, when you find that business where the vault is open, the gold bricks are there, now go ahead and press the gas. Don't say, oh, it's enough or I had it. That's when you actually get aggressive. But to get aggressive in 2025 when everything is completely inflated, the currency's devalued and there's crypto and liquidity everywhere and everyone's chasing the same assets is going to be a lot more difficult now in real estate. But that not to say that you won't find an open door though. I did. And even up to this day, like we probably bought 8 properties about a dozen properties this year still, and we'll buy them right. I bought a house up in Palm Harbor. I think the neighbor was selling for $1.3 million. I paid 780 for it. You know, straight equity. Now, situation like that, you buy. Now we had to deal with a lot of stuff. We spent probably like 60, 70 grand into it. Still a ton of equity. That's what I tell people. If you're going to buy something, make sure the margin is there. Don't buy something just to look good or to meet your numbers or meet a goal. Buy something because it makes sense financially. You're going to profit immensely and you have an extra cushion of fat there because you like to eat ribeye and you don't want to eat the bones, you know?
All right. I got one last question here before we get into the rapid fire. So the question is you had mentioned earlier about moving fast in companies. And so you were opening stores 3 to 4 weeks. So my question to you is, how do you mobilize people to be able to move a company quickly?
Caffeine. Drink a lot of coffee. I was drinking Starbucks Frappuccinos, the ones with sugar. I was unhealthy back then.
Okay, but
Uh,
like the activities. So okay,
no,
you're
no.
working
What
really
I'm
hard.
trying to say
Yeah,
is what happened was, listen, I probably had ADHD, which they call an issue. To me, it's a gift from God.
yeah,
Okay. Everything that they label an issue, I see it as a gift because you use your gifts and talents that God's given you, right? The best thing that's ever happened to me is I used to work 100 miles an hour drinking 3, 4 of those Frappuccinos a day. So I like to slow down more than anyone now. And unfortunately, it's hard for me to slow down, but I still do. But what I used to do was just be resourceful. I used to go into Craigslist, find workers, go to Home Depot, pick up the Hispanic guys, right in the neighborhood. Hey, you guys want to come in and help over here? I remember one building in Houston. we got this building. It was like an office building, and we started taking out a lot of the columns to open it up. And I had people in the neighborhood with sledgehammers coming in there, knocking out, and say, "Hey, listen, I'll pay you $12." And just be resourceful, be fast, don't follow the book. And there's so many tools now. Craigslist. I used to go to Home Depot. There's so many tools to find people. It just you have to be that person that talks to people. When I go to Home Depot and I was buying materials, I wasn't just looking at the materials. I was looking at left and right. Okay, this guy's a plumber. This guy's an electrician. Let me hit him up while I'm here. Hey, what do you do? Okay, let me get your number. I got a little price. Make connections, write down their phone numbers while you're there. Have your mind racing on 9, 10 different things so you can multitask while you're in one place. You're getting 4 or 5 things solved. And literally, you'll go meet the guy there. You meet this guy, say, oh, okay. And then you call him an hour later. He'll come over. He'll take care of your little electrical issue. The other guy will come take care of the plumbing issue and things will get done. But what happens with most people is they think everything is you Google it, you call a big company,
yeah,
you do this, and you listen, you do that, but by the time you pay them all the bills and all the things, there's no profit left for you
yeah.
in the rest.
So what do you do when you're running a team and you come back and say, listen, we're opening up something in 3 to 4 weeks when they've told you it's going to take 6 months?
Yeah.
How do you mobilize them to actually get it done and motivate them to say, hey, listen, we're doing this. What's your approach to that? If you have somebody, the team
I
saying, no,
think
we
I,
can't
I
do it.
think it's the culture, It's
Yeah.
like in the retail, like the retail days, I used to jump in the dumpster to condense the dumpster so we don't have to pay for an extra pickup. So they see the boss is in the dumpster.
Yeah.
He owns 24 stores. He's jumping up and down in the big green dumpster. And these guys are looking at me like, my gosh, this guy's nuts. But we
Yeah.
love him because he's so down to earth.
Got it.
People want people that are real now. They want someone to really. If I had to tell you what business really is, it's just psychology. You have to be able to face somebody and within a few minutes understand what kind of person they are and touch an emotional part of them. And you got to get them to buy into what you're doing. I mean, I was a big rah-rah guy. I had these guys opening my stores 7 days a week because I was offering bonuses and vacations and, put the little cheese out in front of them and say, hey, whoever hits the numbers, the comes in first place this month, getting the all paid vacation to whatever. So I was always given the little book. You got to share the wealth. You got to make them feel like I'll tell you the story about my contractor. I met him 5 years ago. Um, he's like family now. He came with a broken pickup truck. I loved his work ethic. And I said, Aldo, man, we got to help you get some properties for yourself. Like, this isn't a lifestyle. Like, your truck's breaking down. Since I've given him two of my Lexuses as a bonus. I've given him my Lexus 460 before. He put a few 100,000 miles on that. Now I give him my Lexus 570, like $100,000 one that was probably worth 30 grand when I gave it to him. Because the guy's going to all these different states, sleeping in these houses and remodeling the whole place for me. So the approach is it has to be more personal, emotional. And I think that's part of the reason why Trump is the president right now. He knows how to tap into that emotion on people. He knows how to encourage people. And listen, he may not deliver a great pizza. He may smash it in your face and say things that offends you and, upset everybody and make it. But I'll tell you one thing, he motivates the people around him to want to be better.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's an emotional thing to tell people, listen, we can either go at 10 miles an hour and never get anywhere, or we can, go at 60, 70 miles an hour, not know everything we're doing, but get it done and learn as we go, move fast, still make wise decisions with prayer and making sure the numbers make sense. But we can move a lot faster and do things more unorthodox. But listen, it looked like it was going to be a disaster for him, but all of a sudden, he's winning. He's winning. Europe agreed to 15%. They were only paying a point and a half before. So he's got 13.5% doing nothing. Now, the Canadians don't want to hear this because he's really having a problem with the Canadians now. And I hope he comes around. We love Canadians. They come to Florida all the time. But at the end of the day, I think people don't realize you need real motivators like that. And I wouldn't say like Trump because everyone might get offended, but you need people that are going to motivate and fight for each country the way Trump's fighting for his country now. Because you got to admit, I went to China. I had to go import those shoes. Before China, business was booming. But once I saw that it wasn't going to be booming unless I joined that race, I had to go and sell out too. And we imported 30, 40 containers of shoes every year from China. I went to, find the factories and make shoes. And so you have to adapt. I think that's another thing. You always constantly have to adapt. But to get your people to move fast, I think you have to pick the right people to begin with. You know, half the time it's not the person that's the most polished, that has the highest degree. You want to pick the people. I used to go into those neighborhoods, believe it or not, Mark. I picked the one that was the hungriest, that probably was not the most qualified, that didn't even have a great story. I hired kids that didn't know their dad, young African American kids that no one believed in them. And I said, listen, I'm going to give you a chance. Oh, and if you mess it up, you mess it up. But I'm going to believe in you. And I'd encourage them. And you know what? They all learned a lot of stuff. They learned how to be managers and moved on to the better pastures. But most of the time you want to get someone that's more young, ambitious, hungry. So if you get someone that's polished, rich already, he's already, I hate to say it, he's a little bit polluted and soiled. It's going to be hard to have him go and say, hey, it's a Saturday, you got to go run and handle this. It's like, wait a minute, you can't, I'm not doing that. So
Well, I have like 4 pages of notes here. This is so good, so life giving. The conversation. Rapid fire. You ready for 3 quick
yeah,
questions,
yeah,
and then we're going to
yeah.
wrap it up.
I'll
So
keep it
it's
short
been
too, short
amazing.
answers. Yeah.
All right. So first question. I'm a big reader. What's the one book for you? We're going to say the
Sure.
Bible is. We'll say the Bible. Okay, we've taught. What would you say would be the outside of the Bible would be the one that has made the biggest impact in your career?
Listen, I know even I said this on my last podcast too. There is no other book that's going to make a bigger difference if you follow it.
I totally agree.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You could be every other good book that you read, the Intelligent Investor, all these other ones, and I haven't read any of them. I haven't been to any seminars. Every one of them, all the good biblical wisdom principles in all those books originate from the Bible. You go to the source, you go direct. Do I want to be a Catholic or an Orthodox and kiss the priest's hand and go confession? No, I just go direct when I mess up with Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
So uh, that's the Bible that's going to be the life changer, the game changer. And when you read it, it just doesn't talk to you, but it directs your feet path. It tells you which direction to go. It says, hey, you know what? It's enough houses. You don't need more houses. You know, you got
Yeah.
enough. That's a give now. You know, like right now in the stage of my life, it's not about getting, you know. Yeah, can I go on to be a ten digit net worth guy? Yeah, I could easily. But now I don't want to be the rich man that dies rich. I don't want to be the rich man that comes to Jesus and say, "Oh, Jesus, what else do I have to do?" Well, you're following everything, but now give me everything. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm willing to give him everything.
Yeah.
I'm giving because he gave me everything. Mark, you got to understand. He gave me a life that's crystal clear,
Yeah.
pure, and like heaven on earth, and I was drinking sewage water. I was doing the secular thing, you know, get rich, make money, have more buildings, have more houses, you know. What was I doing? Building my own ego, building my own kingdom. And listen, we're all going to get to that age. And it's going to be too late. Steve Jobs was there. You heard what he said. I'm sure you heard his last statements. The same watch that's 30 grand and $10 tells the same time, you know, the same car that's, you know, $100,000 and 10,000 gets you to the same destination, you know. His biggest regret was he didn't spend time with his family and he didn't give back. All he did, and honestly, I hate to say this, I love the iPhone. I don't use it for bad things. I use it all for great positive things. But I tell you, it is one of the most dangerous devices in kids' hands and people's hands nowadays because that itself has become an idol. You have everything at your fingertip now. You have access to buying anything. I mean, it's just amazing how even social media, the kids doom scroll, and then before you know it, they're down in the dumps. No one is going out and enjoying this beautiful creation that God made, you know, all this beautiful nature and all these beautiful places anymore, you know. So my thing is it's got to be the Bible, and there's no other book that's ever going to touch it, you know.
100%. It's interesting. You said something that is very, very true, and you start to see it as you start to look for it. Is if you go to like the motivational books, Think and Grow Rich, you know, all these, like even How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's actually when you go back and you start reading the Bible, there's like there, it's all intertwined in the Bible.
Yeah, Proverbs tells you all this stuff. You know, a good man leaves his kids a good inheritance. You know, it tells you all this stuff. It tells you to be a good steward of money. You know, don't waste. Guess who's eating all the leftovers in my house? My wife's a gourmet. You know, she knows how to cook the best food. So I eat it the second day, third day. My kids won't eat it. They're spoiled.
Yeah. 100%. So that's no, that's good. I love that answer, and it's the importance of it as well. I think is a good. It's really good. So I love how you responded to that. So thank you for that. Second question is the three words. If you thought of three words that best describe you, that from people that know you best, how do you think they would describe you in three words?
Fearless, unorthodox, and connected
Okay, connected, like as in like
with Christ.
with
Connected with
with
Christ.
Christ. Perfect. Okay, great. And then, yeah, last question is final advice for the listeners. Anything you want to say? Final advice for the listeners.
Final advice is life is like a vapor. It's going to go so fast. I remember coming here 20 years ago, and it seems like my kid was 5 and now he's 21 swimming with sharks, you know? So it goes so fast. And we miss the treasure that's found in Jesus. And the treasure, when you find Jesus, is he actually gives you directs your path to more of a peaceful road, not a road that is more abundance in the things you may not need, but an abundance in the peace in your home, peace in an upbringing, being an example. My son tells me all the time, Dad, there'll never be a father that was a greater example to us because we see all the other fathers and other friends' fathers and what they do. And And it's sad because everyone is out there trying to create a kingdom that's going to be like a pillar of salt 30, 40, 50 years from now. And when you know that going into it, it's almost like insanity. And Jesus said, why do you go toil for the things that rust and moth eat and the things that are going to get destroyed and stolen? It's all going to be left behind, whether you have 100 million or 1 million or 500,000. And the best thing you can do is create those memories with your children, create that connected time with your wife. I'm a big believer in marriage. I mean, I actually have a show I want to start called Truth or Divorce, a biblical, like a podcast that I'm looking but obviously I don't have gifts and talents in that social media arena, but I think it would be an incredible show because I'm not going to lie to you. I believe 90% of the marriages are polluted. They're just living with cohabits. Everyone's doing their own thing. There's the divorce rate is 50, 60% now. Even with the believers, it's 50, 60%. And marriages, like if you don't have great hobbies with your wife and she's not your best friend, you've already lost. You have to spend time with your wife. That's the person you're going to grow old with, more than anything else. You have to make, after Jesus, you fall in love with Jesus, then you fall in love with your wife and you spend that quality time with her. And that's the key to life is having those memories so you don't look back when you're on your deathbed saying, oh, if I had a little more time, I would have spent more time with her walking or jogging or doing Pilates or traveling or these are the things that I think people lose sight of because they're always looking at that golden calf. They're looking to make more money and more abundance. And it's not given. Listen, we're not the happiest country in the world. We might be the richest sometimes, but we're definitely not the happiest. I think they rank Sweden, Denmark, Norway, some of those countries because people go out in nature and have more balance in their life.
So good. Well, Vicken, this has been amazing. I mean, we talked on a lot of different topics here, and I really appreciate being transparent and just being totally raw. And I think that there were so many nuggets there the listeners can take away from as well. Now, if any of the listeners, if they want to, check out, what you're doing a little bit more, is there anywhere that they
Yeah.
can go to learn a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing?
Honestly, I'm a person that's here to help and give back. So I don't mind you guys posting even my phone number, email for people that are in business that need mentoring, help, talk. Because life is not about taking. Life is about giving back all the things and the experiences, the things you've learned, all the wrong things you've learned to avoid, so that the next group doesn't go through them. So I'm a big believer in giving it all back to people so that they can learn how to do it the right way and have this amazing life because we only have one life to live and everyone says you only live once, but not for me. I live eternally and I don't need to make stupid decisions on this life that's going to ruin my eternal life. So I don't live once, I live forever with Christ. And that's why I tell people anyone wants to reach out to me, they want to grow a business, they need advice. I had a guy call me the other day, his dad's in hospice, out of the blue. I don't know how these guys felt. I guess Jesus gives him my number.
Yeah.
I mean, he had asked for a loan years ago. He said, my dad's in hospice. I need a loan on this house. And, he's over living. He's got $1 million house he's living in. And I gave him the advice about assisted living. And he's already starting to implement it. I just want to see people do well and live a cleaner, better life so that they can bring that next generation out, because I think the most important thing, it's not about us. It's about what do you do to make that next generation better than how we lived. Now, if you
Amazing.
didn't do a good job in that, you really failed. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're Elon Musk. If you didn't make your kids better than you, where they give back and they really care about society and humanity, and not just for the financial well-being, but their spiritual well-being, then I think you failed as a human and as a father. Our father didn't do that for us. He went on a cross and died for us. So I'm willing to take all my free time to help others to find that way in Jesus' name.
Well, Vic, and thanks again for coming on the show. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you like the show, please share and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can partner with us on our next real estate acquisition, go to fulloutinvesting.com. And remember, guys, the fastest way to build wealth is to grow your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.